Hello, and welcome back to the Bring It Out podcast, your go-to show for all things career exploration and youth empowerment. We're working to change the dominant career narrative and connect high-level industry leaders with the incoming generation of talent. Today, I'm beyond excited to welcome Taylor Lee to the podcast. Taylor is actively working in the creator economy, small business standouts, and marketing campaigns. And unlike most other creatives, Taylor also works behind the scenes in things like campaign workflows and partnership strategies. So it's great to have you, Taylor, and please feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, I am Taylor. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia. As Juman said, I talk a lot about the creator economy, marketing campaigns I love with a focus in small businesses, especially local businesses. And my full-time job is actually I am a CRM lead for a scaffolding company. So very outside of what I talk about on the internet.
All right, perfect. And for those of you who are new to the show, the Bring It Out podcast is available on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. So let's go ahead and get started. So to start off the conversation, Taylor, I would love to know how did you discover your passion for the operational side of marketing rather than just the traditional creative side, which is what most people lean towards?
Yeah, so I think for the longest time, ever since I graduated college, I wanted to be in marketing, especially the creative side. And so I finally found myself in a role where I could kind of do whatever I wanted with marketing. But that happened to include all of marketing. So the creative, I was writing newsletters, I was coming up with social graphics. But then I was also trying to figure out what they were going to do for their customer relationship management software and how they were going to do project management as well, because I just hadn't happened to do that kind of stuff before interchangeably throughout my career. And I remember I couldn't fall asleep one night and I ended up spending like 3 hours working on just that. And I was so focused and I was so enthralled. And I woke up and I literally I was at my parents' at the time and I was like, I have to find a way to make this part of my job because I always loved home organization and I have several planners, notebooks, all of that. And so it kind of became something of, oh, I can kind of turn the organization I love outside of work into something I can do for my career. And then it just took some other people kind of seeing oh, you have this sprinkled out through your resume. You just haven't really seen it yourself because I was, again, so focused on being on the creative side of marketing. And so I just kind of started doing some CRM work here and there and I've just really loved it. I love puzzles and it feels like I'm doing a puzzle in a way. So,
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And as a marketing specialist, I'd love to know that when a marketing campaign just completely flops, what is usually the root cause behind that? Is it just a bad creative idea, or is it a failure in the systems and the data tracking behind it?
I think it more has to do with people not really understanding their audience. So, you see a lot of campaigns with people kind of responding negatively, and you'll see, I think, in my opinion, that's because those people have come to associate that brand or that company with something, and then that campaign that they do completely just flips the narrative or flips what they thought that they were getting into. I really think if you have an audience that loves, I don't know, planners and systems, and then you're like, actually, we're not going to talk about that at all. We're going to talk about the fact that we like to look at horses. And I'm like, well, okay, those are different things. But not that somebody would do that. But I think it really comes down to not knowing how, who your audience is and what they're looking for. I mean, we can all talk about the Sydney Sweeney campaign till we're blue in the face, but I think that's a great one of everybody, including me, loved American Eagle. I think they were just one of the more inclusive clothing brands for so long. And then all of a sudden they kind of switched on, they didn't want to carry a certain amount of sizes anymore. And then they became kind of focused on going back to what, Abercrombie and Fitch was back when I was 15. So I think it's very interesting that they've kind of switched who they are. And that I think is kind of why some of American Eagle's campaigns have flopped, is they just forgot who their audience was.
And I've also noticed this trend on LinkedIn as well, where creators, when they're posting something, they always have the specific target audience in mind. So based off of what you're saying, not knowing your audience can really just be fatal to not delivering the right materials, the right content.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think and now so much of social media, especially with creators, is building community. So if you completely abandon that community and what you're making, you're not going to get the engagement that you want. And you're not going to continue to keep them. They're not going to want to see your next thing because you've abandoned them in this first time.
And as a LinkedIn creator, what would you say are your favorite tools to use?
Oh gosh. I mean, everybody loves Canva. I love Canva. I mean, I've been using it since 2016, so a long time now. But I use it for pretty much everything, including like my banner that I make for my LinkedIn, my business cards, my all my carousels. I am just in Canva all the time. Another popular one right now, I think that everybody uses is Notion. That's where I kind of keep a lot of my hubs. So for my freelance clients, I'm in there, and then even for my full-time job, all my notes are in there, my budgeting, but especially my social media dashboard. I have different sections within it where I keep, okay, one list is just brain dump. It's, all the ideas that come to me at 10 p.m. And then the middle list is like what I'm working on. And then a third list is what I've already posted so I can kind of go back. So I really live in Notion for my content creation, especially on LinkedIn. That's where I have the most ideas for. I am trying to have fun on Instagram, but LinkedIn is really where I think I'm living at the moment in terms of content creation.
And I've also noticed on LinkedIn that you've been posting a lot about like cold outreach and like the opportunities that you can gain from cold outreach. So I would love to know what the best way is for someone
Yeah.
to cold email or like book a one-on-one coffee chat.
Oh, it's really just persistence. I used to do sales. I was the annoying person that would come to an office and ask people to buy the product that I was selling, and it was terrible. It was like a humiliation ritual. But I will say, 8 years out, or gosh, six to 8 years out, it was some of the best experience I could get because I had to learn how to get rejected and learn at the same time like what worked for me in terms of cold outreach. So it's really about practice, which I think is, everybody kind of wants to hear like, oh, if you say these three things, it's going to work. But it's really just like putting yourself out there and just doing it. I think we're all kind of fixated on, we really hope we get the outcome that we want. But when you start to do that, at least for me, I then start to get so worried about what I'm saying that I end up not sending anything at all. So you have to let yourself fail. You have to let yourself be bad at it and not get the coffee chats and not get the responses you want. But for every, 10 to 15 that you don't get, you will get that one. And that one could end up being so much more meaningful than the ones that you rejected you or didn't respond. I also think, I would like to think that most people want to help other people. They want to see other people succeed. So if you just start putting yourself out there, you are going to get the yeses. You do a really good job of it. You show that you're knowledgeable about what the person does. You are very like, what you're going to talk about, and what that person's going to get out of it. And I think that's really the key to a good cold outreach, is showing that the brand or the person or the thing that you're getting into. People love to be complimented. People love to feel good about themselves, and they love to know that you're not just like asking every single person that comes along your feed. You're not just trying to get any marketing job or any job in general that just appears. You want that one with that person, or you just want to know what that person has to offer. So make it personable. But again, you just got to do it until it becomes kind of a routine and kind of regular in your life, and you don't feel nervous about hitting send every time you do it.
Yeah, I mean, I've also experienced this with the podcast, where like when I'm reaching out to people like you, to like come and be guests on the podcast, sometimes like nobody responds or it's a rejection. So it's definitely like a process, and you
Oh yeah,
have to just like learn to trust yourself in it.
exactly. Yeah. You're going to get rejected more times than you're going to get a yes, but the yes is typically very, very meaningful.
Thank you for that. And I would also like to discuss how you highlight small business standouts. So, what is one tactical advantage that you think small businesses have over massive corporations when it comes to launching a successful marketing campaign?
Yeah, I think there's one post I have that I wrote like so many months back that lists like a bunch of ones, but there are two that I think really stand out. And the first is the community around a small, or especially a local like pillar in the community. They have that backing that even if you do kind of flop, it doesn't really matter because they know you. They know who the owner is. They know like their daughter's friend's cousin works at that shop or works at that ice cream place, and so they have that community of people that back them up. So like there's a coffee shop in Georgia that just opened a third location. And I went to the grand opening because I'd been to their other locations and it was packed. The line was out the door. And of course, their marketing, I would say their marketing is also incredible. It's called Bazaar Coffee. They're like, I think one thing that stands about their marketing is they do a lot on Pinterest, which not a lot of people do, but their photos are so aesthetic and really cool that they have that solid marketing creative established, but then they've also become a community or a pillar in the community. They did when SNAP benefits were getting cut, they had a food drive and a food like bin outside their store that was filled to the brim. And I think that's what's so important about small businesses is if you support your community will support you back. So that's where they get that support from, no matter, again, if they do a marketing campaign that might just not hit the mark, I think that's not going to crush them in the long run. Additionally, I think small businesses have to be a lot more resourceful because they don't have the same resources that big brands do. And I think with that, they have to get more, like they do have to go on Pinterest and create these beautifully aesthetic looking coffee shops or shots of their coffee and their matcha and whatever. And they have to be more, do more with less. So they do have to do more of the talking heads and more of the small budget posts that honestly, I think end up getting more engagement because they're more personable than, a beautiful ad. For instance, I love Coach. I love Coach so much. They're one of my favorite purse brands. But a lot of their marketing campaigns are just, look how pretty this bag is. And I'm like, no, you're right. I am still going to buy that bag because it's beautiful. But there's not a lot of community within that marketing campaign versus you're seeing who's making your coffee, you're seeing who's running the store, and you're seeing even who's doing the marketing itself.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even here in Chapel Hill, some of my favorite stores, they're all local. They're not very big on like franchises or stuff like that. So it's like very homey and cozy.
Exactly.
And it makes people like want to come back and get more.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'd also like to know for students or early career professionals who are interested in breaking into the creator economy or the marketing space, but they don't necessarily want to be on camera, what skills do you think they should be building right now?
Yeah, this is something I could probably spend the next 15 minutes talking about. But for one, I think this is definitely like a popular take going around right now, but with the rise of AI, developing your personal taste is a big one. So, if you want to be on the more creative side of marketing, start, I think Pinterest is a big one for me, but start building those boards on Pinterest. Save those things that you like. Save the creators that you are inspired by on social media. Follow the people that you like their style, but also follow the people that are super out of your comfort zone. There's one creator, and I wish I could remember her name, but she does these videos of not your boring inspiration or something. I can't remember, but she will build outfits based on like a ladybug. Like she will pull just like a random thing and she'll build a whole outfit around that. And most of the outfits I would never wear, but I think she looks so cool because she's built her personal taste and she builds these like outside of the box frames of references. So following people like that also not only will it inspire you creatively from like their creation or like what they're posting, but how they're getting ideas too. So that inspired me to look at more like when I go on a lot of walks. So when I go on walks, how do the leaves look? How do the bugs look? How do the birds, like all the different birds that are in my area, they have so many different colors. Nature is such a good way to look at color palettes that work together. And you'll find that in a lot of different, car companies, they have their own paint brands, or like their paint colors that are specific to them. So you'll start seeing these color palettes that work that you didn't think of in the beginning. So developing taste is the first one. In terms of content creation itself, obviously carousels are big. So learning a tool like Canva or Adobe Express, or if you want to be like a real graphic designer, unlike me, actually learning like Adobe and Photoshop and all the like true graphic design tools. No shade to Canva. I love it. I'm there all the time. Although they now have Affinity, which I've been wanting to try out. It's like their Adobe workspace. So, but built like working on like how to, I think carousels are a really interesting one in that you can't just create one post. You have to create a long, like graphic and then have to figure out how to break it up with everything still working, especially if you're entering videos in there. That's not going to work if you take it to a specific outside app that breaks it up. So kind of learning how to develop graphics that work the way you want them to when you post. Also, start recording everything. Get comfortable recording everything. Like if you want to make videos but you don't want your face to be in it, record every single thing you do. I think it took me a really long time to start doing that, and then I left an event that I had worked and I went, oh wait, I can make a video about this because I recorded enough. So you'll eventually, once you start practicing having your phone out, and obviously, do it in a way that feels natural. I don't like to record everything I do. I like to live in the moment. But like if you're traveling, come up with a shot list that you want to get and start recording everything, and then you'll leave and you'll realize, oh, I have enough to make a video. And if you're comfortable doing a voiceover, get better at take classes, learn how to do public speaking, record yourself with a friend, talk to friends over the phone. But if you don't want to do a voiceover, there's so many cool ways people are putting text to videos now that you can just do that. So really photo editing, video editing, and taking videos and photos of everything you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much for that advice. And I'm sure you've also noticed, I know I have, that creator burnout is at an all-time high right now. So from a systems perspective, how much of that burnout is caused by just a lack of operational structure and poor workflow management?
Yeah, I would say I'm honestly not sure. I think everybody does things so differently that it really just depends where your organizational structure lies. So I know creators that don't have any when it comes to posting. They just, an idea comes to their mind and they do it. I don't work like that, but they do. And I'm sure that they have burnout in their own way that's not applicable to just better systems management. But for me, I know it is. So if I don't have something telling me, okay, you thought about this, like reminder, you thought about this at 12 a.m. 4 weeks ago and you haven't posted about it. Like I need somewhere where that information lives or I'm going to forget I thought about it. I think too, again, I think I say this a lot, but it's trial and error. So, a lot of the advice is, post 5 times a week and do all the engagement and do all the posting and be consistent. But I really don't think that works for most people. I think you're not building the correct audience if you're doing that. You're just posting for the sake of posting. And eventually you will, as far as I did, I got burnt out. I realized that I was posting for the sake of posting instead of posting what was meaningful. And now the last 5 LinkedIn posts don't reflect really anything I want to talk about. They're just there. They're just like a meme that didn't even do well because that's not what I'm known for. There are tons of meme accounts that get, 70 likes, but that's because that's what they're doing. So I think there was like a week or 2 weeks where I then just ended up doom scrolling because I was so burnt out from just posting. And so then I had to take a step back and go, okay, what is a realistic posting schedule? I mean, I love my full-time job. I never want to get burnt out to a point where I can't do that 100%. So, but I also do love creating content. I've come to learn it, love it. And so it's really just about, maybe once or twice a week scheduled, but that leaves enough time or enough room for me to, if something pops in my head, maybe I can just post it real quick. But I'll be honest, I'm still figuring it out. I think I'm having a good time playing around in Notion. And one thing people can do is there's a ton of templates out there. So I definitely recommend, finding one that looks good, looks like you would use it. And then maybe after you've kind of figured out how to use Notion applicably or like in a way that makes sense for you, tailor it down to what actually makes sense for you. So I've downloaded a template like a couple years ago and I think I got rid of like half the stuff that was in there because it didn't make sense for what I was doing, but the bones were good and it taught me how to use Notion. And so I kept the bones and I made it to where it works for me. So I think, it's about setting up systems that work for you, but playing with them as well. They're not always going to work all the time. Also with burnout, start finding a community of content creators. I think that's been huge. I'm the professional people person for Jade Powell, who's huge on LinkedIn, and she does events about the creator economy, and all these creators come to it. And her first one was about mental health and how not to burn out as like a solopreneur and a creator. And I think finding those resources at that time, I was barely creating anything, but the feedback that I heard from the creators that came, like it was such like a nice time to see like the same struggles that other people were having, and it was a space to really come together and talk about how they could overcome those, or the fact that it is okay to take a break for a week or two. Like if you have built the right audience, they're not going to be like, "Oh my god, you didn't post last week, we're unfollowing you." They're probably honestly, with the way the algorithm is, nobody's going to know.
And I'd also like to discuss how many creators usually love like the brainstorming, creative phase, but they hate building systems. So how do you help highly creative people embrace structure without feeling like it crushes their creativity? Which I guess ties back to, this question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, yeah, it's about, I mean, I think with the couple of clients that I've worked with, it's finding out what they're doing now and then building around that process. I think too, I kind of offload some of the stuff that they're doing. So, maybe they come up with the ideas, I load it into whatever process it is, or I am the one that is in charge of the system, or I try to tailor the system in a way that makes sense for them. So maybe they don't need to see every single bit of analytics or every single function. They just need to go in, click one thing and see, okay, this is what I'm posting this week. So making sure it's tailored to what is best for that creator. In terms of creators that are doing it on their own, it's kind of like taxes. You gotta like just do it the first time and like really get it set up, and then the next time you're using it, it's not going to be as difficult or as hard or as taxing. So I think really, again, and Notion templates. I mean, it doesn't have to be Notion. It could be Google, like Google Workspace, or there's a project management software called Rike or HubSpot, or anything that you're using. Find what other people are doing, set it up, and then just try to work in how it's going to work for you. And then you can even start small. If you don't want a complicated system and you don't need a complicated system, one of my favorite ways to stay organized is the collections features in Instagram. I mean, that's where I put, when I do the creator economy or small business shout out, I have a folder for each topic that I want to talk about, and that's where I save them. And so then at the beginning of the month, if I'm sticking to my posting planning schedule, at the beginning of the month, I go through those folders and see what I saved, and they're there. And that way they're in a space, but it's literally just Instagram. Like it's not anything complicated. So yeah, so really figuring out what works for you, and just kind of saying, okay, I got to do this. I got to do this now, and then it'll be done.
And do you have any advice for like a solo content creator to use automation and all these AI tools and systems to operate a full-scale media agency without having to hire a massive team?
Yeah, I think it starts with figuring out what can you do. So I think I was talking to my mom and I was like, I might hire somebody to like do my branding for me. And she's like, well, can't you do that? I'm like, I guess, but I would kind of like a professional to do it. But at this stage in my career, do I really need to pay somebody to do that with the skills that I have? Probably not. I would love to one day to get somebody to actually who's got a degree in it, who's done all these different ones, to come look and say, well, maybe this color could actually be a little, more saturated or less saturated. But for now, that's something I can do. So figuring out what you can do and what you absolutely cannot, and then breaking that down even smaller. So, I go back to taxes. Don't use TurboTax. Like, don't find a tax person. Like, I 100% recommend getting an actual person to do your taxes. And then that's one that you have outsourced it to a person. It's not a system. But then, maybe if you want to use Notion AI, it's good with formulas. If you say, I want to build an analytics dashboard, but I don't really know how to set up the formulas, you can type into the AI bot, like, how do I set up this formula for this specific outcome that I want to see? And so that's something that as long as you have a basic understanding of like what you're trying to get out of an analytics dashboard, you can use the AI tool to help you with the formulas and all the smaller things that maybe you don't know as well. And then if you get to a point where you need a third party to do it, absolutely go to a third party. I would also say, project management is something that at the beginning, that's definitely, I think, all you. There's so many systems out there that you can use, and you don't even You could honestly do it in a planner. It's like a physical planner. You could plan out your content, your schedule in a physical planner if you don't want to live on your computer all the time. I love my physical planner. I switch between that and Notion and a digital planner on my iPad. Like, it's all over the place. So it's really figuring out what can you do, what could, another system do, and then what do you absolutely need to hire another person to do.
Thank you so much for that information. And do you think creators and small businesses are wasting way too much money on marketing software, like you mentioned, that they don't actually need?
Mm-hmm. I honestly don't know. I think I would need definitely more insight into what people are doing, but I would like to think people actually might be underspending in that realm. I think people, like I said, with using AI to build an analytics dashboard. AI is my last resource. That is the last thing I want to try to do. It's used occasionally. I will occasionally say, does this thing have any spelling errors in it? I am not good at grammar. Please check for me. But I think we should be spending more money on people that have, gotten the background to do those jobs. And so I think, honestly, you see a lot of these, there's a lot of companies near me that are using AI to make flyers, and they're so ugly. I'm so sorry. I know you're struggling. I know you're a small business, but like, you can pay somebody like $50 on Etsy one time to have and buy like 100 templates that you can use and interchange. So I would say, don't spend your money on something that's making a flyer that everybody knows is AI. Everybody knows it's AI. I think that's the thing that maybe they're not realizing, is that everybody can tell. But I would say I think it is financially worth it to spend a little extra money to have a real person make something as personal as your logo, as what you're putting out there to clients, because that's the first thing they're going to see is what it looks like. So spend more money on somebody that can actually make it look like you and feel like you, and people will go, oh, this is that company. And I know because it looks like all their other stuff. But if you're using a system and you look like everybody else, nobody's going to know you from your competitor. Now, I'm sure there are, I've worked with people that the companies are too small for the amount of the customer relationship management software they're using. They might be paying a little too much in what they actually need. Again, I think it really just falls into everybody wanting to use AI for everything. And I just don't think you need to invest that much into AI, especially if you're small. Maybe if you're bigger and there are God, I love an automation that will send a sales rep a reminder that they haven't spoken with a company and you haven't followed up in 3 weeks. Love a reminder. Love an automation. I love HubSpot. One of my favorite things about HubSpot is if a company hasn't followed up in X amount of you sent them an email 2 weeks ago, they haven't sent you one. Now they get an automated email that says, hey, we haven't heard from you. I love that. I think it's great. I don't think that, from experience, I think that constantly emailing companies that have not expressed interest in you doesn't really pay off that well. And so having a automation that could just do a simple little reminder, it's going to either jog their memory oh, I forgot to respond to you, or they're going to be oh, I just actually don't want to talk to you. And now you've not put in that time to spend on writing those emails and putting in that effort. You can spend it on a company or somebody that does want to talk to you.
Thank you so much for that. And I've noticed a lot on LinkedIn as well, where everyone's saying you need to be personable, right? You need to have a sense of personality. People have to know who you are, and you can't just sound like AI and like everyone else, because that's nobody can relate to that anymore.
Absolutely. I think that's so true. I think you can tell when somebody's written something that is AI. I mean, I hate the whole oh, if you use an M dash, it's AI. Okay, we can relax a little bit, but I think if you don't have your your own personal voice in there, people are going to be able to tell. And I think that's also about what I said with the brand recognition, is that is going to build brand recognition. If you add in your own, I say y'all all the time, so people are going to know that that's me because I'm saying y'all in almost everything that if you talk to me, if you read some of my posts, or I think I had a spelling error and my mom was like, oh, you need to go correct that. I was now people aren't going to think it's AI, so I'm going to keep it. So yeah, I think that there are certain use cases for AI, But in terms of creativity, very little. Very little. I think you need to sound like you and you need to be you. And if that doesn't work, then you got to figure something else out. I don't know. Yeah.
And shifting back to the marketing side of things, do you think like virality is a reliable business metric, or can a creator build a highly profitable business with a small, systematic audience instead of just millions of casual views?
I don't think so. I think virality is it's fun and exciting and everybody wants to chase it because it is kind of like, it gives you those endorphins, but I think you're not really creating for the audience that you have, and they will start seeing that and get just like, okay, well, I actually don't really want to follow you anymore because you're just trying to make a post that's viral. And that being said, I think it's fun to hop on some trends. I think there are a trend that I've looked at and I'm like, oh, wait, that would be so fun for me to do. And so I think if you're a brand and you see a trend, like I think one of my favorites going around right now is you're a photographer, but Instagram highly values reels. And so they like move their photos with Adobe. They'll like move it up and down. And I think that's so fun and that fits for photographers or whoever is kind of in that world. And that's one that like those are probably going to go viral because it's a trend, but it still fits who that brand or who that company is. So I think virality is not a strategy. I think that it will obviously increase reach, but I think the most important thing any brand or creator or anybody can do is focus on who is already listening to you and staying true to who you are. So like I think one great example of that is Lace out. I might be getting her name wrong, but it's Lace Alfred. She does this She's So Lucky podcast. And for so long, she was a health and wellness influencer. And then she decided to change to being more about building your own luck, personal branding, finance, like career growth. And so she did have to let go of that audience that followed her for health and wellness. But at the same time, she stayed true to who she was. And so she obviously, I think she still retained a solid amount of her audience because at the core of your brand, your company, your message is really who you are instead of like what you're offering. So you're allowed to change up, but again, keep in mind why people are following you. What is the ultimate reason?
Thank you so much for that. And before we end off in today's session, I'd love to know if you have any books or resources that you found personally helpful that you'd like to share with the viewers.
Yeah, so She's So Lucky podcast. That one it's great. I went to an all women's college, so I'm all about anything that is focused on women and supporting women and women growing. So She's So Lucky podcast. Even though I just said all that about women, there is a book written by a man called 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. I got it at a book exchange. It was like a blind book exchange. And the girl who gave it to me said, this book changed my life. And I'm like, okay. And I say, and so I get it. And I'm like, okay, well, it's probably just another time management. Like, set your alarm at this time and, go to bed at this time and la da da da. It was not like that at all. It did also change my life. So 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals. I can't remember who it's written by, but that is a very unique title, so people should be able to find it. But it's essentially just kind of, it's pessimistic in a way that you're coming to terms with death, that you're gonna die. So you need to kind of pick what you want to focus on. So you have to kind of come to terms with, I think, like for me, I want to live in a downtown apartment warehouse loft, but I also want to live on a farm and I also want to have a backyard. And so at some point I'm going to kind of have to figure out, okay, I can't do all those at the same time. And I have to figure out which one I really want to do or accept. So it's about kind of accepting what you can do in this lifetime and then really just going for it. And I think that really changed my perspective of, my career growth for sure. I think there were so many things that I wanted to do. And then when I kind of realized, okay, I don't want to go back to school, that's for sure. So that crosses off a lot of things. And so let me just focus on this thing. And it honestly made life a lot easier. So that's a great book. I really just read fictional books though. So if you want any recommendations on that end, I got you. But those are my biggest two. And then I think in terms of resources, like there are great creators out there who have great insight. For undergrads going into the career world, there's the ninth semester on Instagram and LinkedIn. She's wonderful. Jade Powell is great for the creator economy. Roxy Kaus is wonderful for personal branding and getting started. Those are three of my favorite people on, like, in terms of the content creator world. Now, if you want some more crafting inspiration, I got that too. But in terms of like growing in your career and growing in content creation, those are some great resources to follow. And then if you want to know more about marketing, there's Grad Girl Marketing, and there's another one I'm going to forget, and I'm so sorry to who they are, but I love a marketing newsletter that tells me like what's going on. There's Vibology on Substack, and they talk all things that's going on in the creator brand marketing collaboration world. So if you want to be on the creator side, there's some creators to follow, absolutely. If you want to be on the marketing side and know what's going on, that's where kind of more the newsletters come into play.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Taylor, for joining today. And for the viewers who are watching right now who might want to join your community, where can they connect with you?
Yeah, they can find me. I think LinkedIn is the big one. It's Taylor-Lee is like the URL, but Taylor C. Lee, because there's a million Taylor Lees. I have a very popular name. And then Instagram, it's Taylor_Christina with 3 A's. And then if you can't find me on any of those, my website is taylorclee.com. So my name is very prominent in everything I do, and that has links to all my socials.
Thank you so much, Taylor, for joining, and I hope we can talk again soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful. You asked really great questions.
Thank you.